in the world. Time enough for life to unfold all the precious things love has in store. We have all the love in the world. If that's all we have, you will find we need nothing more. Every step of the way will find us with the cares of the world far behind us. We have all the time in the world just for love, nothing more, nothing less, only love.
Please be all seated. I'll try to get through this without crying too much. I'm sure my sister's the same. I've given lots of talks. It's the hardest one I'll ever give. A few things. Just wanted to thank everybody for coming. First of all, we had no idea how many people would come, so we really, really appreciate it. There's lots of people here that have come to support us, so we can't thank you enough. I've never known pain like this. Don't wish it upon anybody. A few things. This is being videoed on Zoom, so we have Auntie Renee, who I'll talk about, in Vienna. We have Auntie Gillian in South Africa, who is also a Jehovah's Witness, and also Auntie Jean, who can't make it today. So we'll do our best to give our dad the best send-off that we can. There's a few other people as well. My mum, my sister, obviously, who's arranged everything. And also in the States, we have Eric and the kids. And we will be talking about Eric. We've got a fun story about Eric and Dad, which is a lovely surprise, which will make people laugh. In a nice way, obviously. So before I go into this funeral talk, my sister would like to say a few words.
Have a few things to say about Dad, the type of person he was, and what he meant to us. Growing up, he was loving and protective. Nobody messed with him. Although hard on the exterior, he had a soft heart. He enjoyed a good laugh and was always up to something. Close neighbours were receivers of his practical jokes. I know his best friend, Alan, was the receiver of many of his practical jokes that lived 2 doors down.
Unlikely so.
He's got stories. He loved to wind people up, no matter where. Public transport, sticking his tongue out at little kids and then quickly turning away with the straightest face, answering the phone with a really elderly person's voice, a woman, planting things in people's gardens. He was a real joker. He loved creation, plants and animals. Starting young, he had a box of spiders that he kept underneath his bed until Nan found them and freaked out. He especially loved the foxes and crows. I have many memories of him keeping scraps of every meal. He hated waste. And calling out to the crows, he'd be feeding them. He also enjoyed his...
He used to make a crow noise, didn't he?
Yes, that's another surprise for you.
Okay.
He also enjoyed his handsome aged cheese. The stinkier, the better. And he would say, that is handsome. Pickled onions, but most of all, his beer. The more hops, the better. One thing I appreciate also is that he supported our faith as Jehovah's Witnesses. And we also always had a house full of people. A couple of months ago when I was in the hospital with him, he held my hand and he looked up and he said, "Don't worry, love, he's going to take care of me." That faith gives me comfort and hope, knowing that Dad's sleep will be short until we see him again. The Bible promises at John 5:28, the hour is coming in which all those in memorial tombs will hear his voice, and there will be a resurrection to life here on this earth, with no suffering, sickness, or death, and I can't wait to see him. See you there, Dad, with your cheeky smile.
Thank you. Where do you start? So, 87 years. How do you condense 87 years into, we've cheated because we started a bit earlier, but half an hour, which is what we would have had. How do we condense that? Well, it's such a hard thing to do because it's physically impossible. So we're just going to create a memory as a celebration of my dad's life. My dad was a character, as my sister said, that he played tricks on all the neighbours. Especially Alan. I mean, Alan and Julie are really Puddicks. If you actually cut them in half, inside there is Puddick DNA, because they've been part of our lives since we were children. Our house was always full with brothers and sisters, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Alan was always part of it, and certainly was Julie. I'm going to carry on because I've got lots to say, but I'd like to invite up at this moment Uncle Ruggie, who'd just like to say a few words. It's a secret. Don't tell anyone, he said.
What can I say about Ron? He's not only the handsome, tall, good-looking person, full of surprises, and very intelligent, colourful personality. When Pat and I used to go out together, sometimes I used to take Pat for a drink and meal. After a nice evening out, I used to bring Pat home. When Ron used to see me, he'd come and meet me, shake hand, say hello to me. That was a very nice touch. When I got married, 1963, we rented a small flat in Muswell Hill near Queenswood. Ron sometimes used to go out with his friends, and he used to come pretty late in the night time. So he asked Pat and me if he could stay in our flat. And we said, that's okay, Ron. So we laid mattress on the floor, and he used to sleep on the floor. Ron loved trying different continental beers.
That didn't change. That never changed.
Yes, he loved that. And there was a small off-license near with us, and he used to pop over there, buy a few bottles of these beers. He used to bring it around to my place, and we used to drink together. Ron and I used to meet up every Sunday in the pub, have a few drinks. Sometimes Pat used to join us. Sometimes Ron and I, with his friend, we used to go Hampstead Heath, have a few drinks there. Every Christmas time we used to get together, have a drink. That was our like a ritual every Sunday and Christmas. He used to love smoking cigar, not Churchill type big cigar, but slimline Cavalier type cigar.
Cheaper ones.
No, they were expensive ones because he was a good-looking person, smart dresser, so everything used to go with him.
My dad, I just trying to nudge it in.
So regularly we used to meet every Sunday, every Christmas time. I remember one day he said, Raggy, I'm going to take you to this German beer cellar, which was in Soho, near West End. And we went to this German beer cellar. No very big place, nicely lit place. There was quite a few people, not a big crowd. There was bloke was playing accordion, nice tune, sort of tune you hear if you go to holiday France, Germany or Austria, sort of background sort of music. So that created a lovely atmosphere. Ron ordered a couple pints of this German draft beer. This bar keeper served those beer in this colorful German jugs, and sort of looked very surprising. We took those beer, sat down, drank. There was a lot of people happy, chatting away. Background, this accordion was playing, so nice atmosphere. We finished those beer, he ordered 2 more beer. And same time he ordered the long German sausage and home-baked bread, dry bread with mustard. And the simple that meal with the German beer, accordion playing, that created a nice atmosphere for us. Ron used to love dancing, and I used to love dancing. So some weekend we used to go dancing, Astoria, Dominion, Royal, Tottenham. These were in the West End. Lively music, lively band, singers. I was more into Latin American rock and roll. He was more into ballroom. But if a Latin American music was played, he was on the floor, dancing away. That was Ron. I remember last time, beautiful memory of Ron, when Linda and Ron got married, they organized this reception. I believe it was somewhere in Kensington. There was a lovely place, this Spanish type restaurant. There was a lot of Linda's family and friend. They loved their champagne. All the time that bottles and bottles of champagne was coming. There was a nice
Who
top.
was playing? Wouldn't be my dad.
No. There was Linda's family and friend. So they loved this champagne. There was nicely tapas type. Dishes were laid down on the table. These waiters were bringing down sheikh kebab with flame burning. So that went very nice. After that, we danced on the floor, lot more champagne. And for entertainment, there were these Spanish flamenco dancers with lovely dress, castanet, gypsy top guitar music. So they played nicely. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. I remember that very well. And Ron was really stood out very nicely. By the way, my Indian background, we believe in reincarnation. So I hope, Ron, your reincarnation be very well. And when my time comes and we meet up together, please come and say hello to me. Thank you, Ron. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Uncle Ruggie. So my dad, I was raised with one sister. My dad was raised with 3 sisters. So I had it easy. I like to feel I had it hard. Auntie Pat is here. Auntie Brenda is here. Sadly, Auntie Jean couldn't make it and is watching via Zoom. So what kind of person was my dad? What kind of person as a young boy? Well, as I understand, he... I can't use any profanities in here because it would be inappropriate, but it has been mentioned on the phone the kind of boy that he was, so we won't go any more than that. Auntie Brenda, did he get into trouble much?
Yes.
Okay. And did he go scrumping, breaking into people's allotments and stealing all their bits and pieces?
Yes.
have to respect him, really, don't you? So what kind of a person was he growing up? He was a handsome boy, wasn't he? He was a handsome bloke, he was a good-looking man. So, as I'm reliably informed, there's two parts to this story. One is clearly a lie, and one is true, and you can decide who's telling the truth and who's telling the lie. Auntie Brenda told us that when Dad was going out, presumably with Uncle Ruggie or his friends or whatever, he would look in the mirror for quite some time before he went out and make comments about his appearance and how wonderful he looked. I'll say no more than that. I know what he said, I wasn't going to say it. So I was going to be very lucky tonight. I wasn't going to say that. Now, here's where the truth and the lie comes in. Because you've heard it from Auntie Brenda. She saw my dad, that's what he did, that's what he said. Now, when my dad was in the hospice, Auntie Brenda reminded him of what he did when he went out, and he denied it. So you can make up your mind who was telling the truth and who was denying. My dad, I never did that, I would never do that. Well, he certainly would. Uncle Ruggie gave me some good advice. When I first started making gin, on my first batch, there's a photograph of my dad's bottle on there, because he helped us make it. And it's a nice picture. It's a wonderful picture of him. It's my favourite picture of him. And I put it on there, and people say, "Why is your dad on there?" And the real reason is just I wanted a picture of my dad on a label. That's the real reason. But the truth is, he obviously helped us through the making of all of this. But Uncle Ruggie gave me some fantastic advice. When he came down to our office one day, he said, "Do you want to increase sales by 20%? So it's a loaded question. You can't say no to it. You've got to say, yeah, of course. He said, "Ditch that picture, put my face on it." I may take Uncle Ruggie upon that at some point in the future. So, excuse me. Anyone knows, living in any family, people have habits, and they have little things about them. So something that we'll never hear again, we'll hear it in our heads, it's never going to go away, we'll certainly never forget it. But one of the things, not just growing up, but even as an adult, the one thing you would hear at home with mum and dad is, "Linda! Linda!" It's sort of like that. It's sort of like, I can obviously hear my dad saying it to perfection. And what's quite funny is my sister's married to Eric, who'll be watching from California. Eric's obviously got an American accent, and Eric would do an impression of that. I'm not going to do Eric's impression, but it was quite good, and it was certainly very funny. In a fake English voice, but it was very, very, very humorous. So my dad left school. He couldn't read and write. He could read very simple sentences. His writing was he just couldn't write. And he went for his first job in Muswell Hill at a bank. Unfortunately, I tried to track him down. I couldn't find out who the bank was, and it would have been great to have known who the person was. And at the interview, the bank manager asked my dad, "Can you read and write?" And my dad said no. And he got the job. And the reason he got the job, because he was honest. My dad was, we were talking about it in the care home. He said, "I just remember," he said, "he was so kind to me. He was so kind to me. And the one thing he said to me, in whatever you do in your job while you're here, if you're not sure about something, and you really aren't sure, just come and ask me. I'm never going to tell you off for asking. And if you keep asking me the same thing again, I'll never tell you off for keep asking. But I'd rather you asked and we got it right, then you just make mistakes, and then there's a cover-up." And he was explaining to me all the things that would go wrong in the administration department of the bank. My dad was a bit of a so-and-so. He was very difficult, had very short-tempered. We're going to talk about how he beat one of my teachers up at school, literally. He had a very, very short temper, but he was extremely kind. He was really, really kind-hearted. And it's obviously a tribute to him to do that. I remember coming home from what we would say was the Kingdom Hall, where Jehovah's Witnesses we would meet, and we were walking from up from the North Circle up to Bounds Green, up to Clifton Road. And as we passed Bounds Green, for some reason, I don't know how this worked out, but we walked past Scout Park, which isn't on the route. You'd have to go out of your way there. And it was absolutely pouring with rain. And all the frogs were coming out. And it's a quiet road. I mean, it would have been 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So it was a residential street, but there were just hundreds of frogs on the street. So I'd seen them, and I went home and told my dad. And we picked up 2 buckets, and we went back in the rain. And we were picking up the frogs off the streets and then taking them back, putting them over the fence just for them to come back out again. But we just didn't want the frogs to be squashed. He didn't have to do that. But it's a measure of the man that he cared enough to go out at 10 o'clock at night in the rain to try and save from some frogs. I mean, I must have been about 12 or 14 or something like that. So after working in the bank for a bit, he went into the army. And he had by today's standards, you call it PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, where you just have anxiety issues about experiences or thoughts or things that happened. And to my dad's dying day, he still experienced nightmares. I can't tell you the things because they're so distressing. This is not the place, but they'd be distressing to hear them now. And he had photographs of the things that he'd seen when he was in the army. And it never left him. I mean, today, hopefully it's still not perfect. I know that from friends in the MOD, but today they have counsellors and people that can try and help you through these things. But back then it was, you were just a wimp if you complained. So he was a very fair man. He was always fair, short-tempered, but fair. And we had when he was in the army, there was they'd have their encampment, and they'd obviously have to take it in turns and being camp guards. My dad was out with his rifle standing there with somebody else guarding the camp, and a local tribesman had come over who was an elderly man. By my dad's standards, he said it was it was an elderly man, and he couldn't speak. He spoke Swahili. He couldn't speak English, but he was asking for a cigarette. My dad gave him a cigarette. Gave him a packet of cigarettes, And then later that day, some of the other guards had seen this elderly chap with a packet of cigarettes and presumed that he'd stolen them, and they beat him to a pulp. So my dad got his guys, and then they beat those soldiers up, and there was a big pit where basically a toilet, and they threw the guys in there. And then the general came down, it all got cascaded up, and then the general shouted at my dad and said, "I don't want any lies. Tell me what happened, Puddick." My dad told him. And nothing else happened, obviously we don't. We're not encouraging people to go beating up people and chucking them in pits of toilet. But that's that fiery justice of just doing the right thing at that moment, and the injustice of seeing an elderly person beaten up for no reason. He'd come down to the office on a regular basis. Now, I'm going to contradict myself now. So we pay to have all our waste taken away professionally. So it's paid for. So whether I put a little bag of rubbish or 20 bags, it costs the same, and I pay every month a fixed fee. Now, Uncle Ruggie, when we were talking, was saying that he took my dad, when they went out dancing one night, for his first experience of going to an Indian restaurant. My dad didn't even know about Indian restaurants. Didn't even know it was a thing, Indian restaurant. And then he was unsure, well, I'm not going to like all this. And as Uncle Ruggie told me, he loved them. Yeah, no, I listened to you. And they had chicken.
They had a tandoori chicken.
They had a tandoori chicken. And any of the little bits and pieces afterwards, he said to the waiter, "Can you just put those in a little bag and I'll have those at home later?" He hated waste. He absolutely hated waste, didn't he, Mum?
That's right.
Any bits of bread or anything at home, he'd go over the park and feed the birds every day. Every day. There was nothing was gone to waste. So he came back to my office. We pay this monthly fee for all the rubbish to be taken away. And my dad would get cardboard boxes and stuff, cut them up, and then with a Stanley knife, cut a big box into about 1,000 little pieces and put it into a bin liner. He'd have 2 bin liners. He goes, "I'll take those away, I'll save you some." I said, "Dad, it's paid for. Whether you put them out or not, I've paid. No, I'm saving you money, I'm saving you money." And George is smiling. He had this little magic thing. So he would get onto a bus, you know, he'd be hobbling away, literally, with about 4 bin liners, but they were light, they were full of paper and just nonsense really. And he would struggle onto the bus with these 4 bin liners and sit down, get to his destination and just go off. And I said to him, you're going to get rumbled at some point. No, I've got it all sorted. But he didn't like waste. And I presume that comes from just having just a very humble upbringing, where they just had nothing. They bathed in a tin bath in the back garden. And I think Nan and Gran did whatever they could really for all of you. They did their best for you in the way that they could. But he didn't like waste, and I got to benefit from that. Get my dad arrested for leaving bags of rubbish on the bus. The schooling. So talking about his temper. When I was at school, I was very chatty. It might be a surprise for anyone that knows me, especially John. We've worked together for many, many years. Talked probably too much. So I was, you know, I can imagine being a teacher and you've got someone like me in the class that just doesn't stop nattering. It'd be very frustrating. I totally accept that. So Mr. Wesson, this is what happened today. So Mr. Wesson, I was 14 years old. We're in PE, so you're in plimsolls, shorts, and a white t-shirt. We're all in the hall for PE, and Mr. Wesson says, "Puddick, stand up here." So because I've been talking, that wasn't framed or anything like that. And he said, "Bend over." So I bent over and touched my toes. So I'm a 14-year-old. He's like a 28, 30-year-old. You know, muscly school instructor, a PE instructor, and he took a running jump and went to kick me up the backside, but caught me where he shouldn't have caught me, and I had to go into hospital, and I was bleeding, and it was really bad, and I was in crutches. And when I came out, my dad came home from work, and he said, "Right, we're going up to school. We're going up to school now." And I said, "Oh, Dad, and he's having a go at me. Get out of bed, we're going up to school right now." You can imagine him, you can hear those words. And we went up to school, and obviously by this time the school had finished. But just by luck, or not luck really, as we pulled up outside the school, do you remember Alan? My dad went up, and there was the sixth formers playing football, and Mr. Weston was the referee. So my dad went over there, and then Mr. Weston never ever spoke to me again. My sister's created a video, which I'm going to just play.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I never knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Anita put that together. It's the first time I've seen it, but I couldn't look at it. I couldn't even look at that. Is there a video as well?
Yeah, you can laugh. And regards to the taste, magnificent. The more hops, the better. And it's beautiful. I'm a happy man. This beer has made me a happy man. Cheers, thanks a lot.
Good for him. I mentioned Auntie Renee at the very beginning, who's in Vienna. When I spoke to her on the phone, she said to me, he was a difficult sod. So I said, he could be. He's still my dad, but yeah, it's true. And she said, do you know what he used to do to you when you were a kid? And I used to shout at him. So I said, no. And she said, he'd wake you up at like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. He'd wake me up at like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning to see something on TV like war related. Wake up, and I'd be fast asleep. Can you remember that, Mum? Him waking me up to watch war films because my dad, because of all his time in the army and stuff, he loved anything to do with World War II. He'd wake us up and watch films. So Auntie Renee, apparently that's the right way to bring up children. We're about to close now. One final little story which shows you really what a small world we live in. In 2014, I walked into, so if anyone knows Muswell Hill, there's I can't remember what it's called. There's a coffee place there, and they always used to have a coffee machine in the window, grinding coffee, and there's a name for it. Martin's Coffee. It's been there for like 100 years in the same family. And behind Martin's, behind the shop, there's a little mews. And I have no idea what I was doing in 2014 and why I was there, but I was walking up and down. There's all these little buildings, and the guys over here, we all work together we're all in a little mews, and there's a little mews like that in Muswell Hill. And there's all these little fancy little shops there. And I was just looking in them. And I walked into this place, and there's all pictures, and it's like Banksy's and all sort of street art and stuff like that. And I look over, there's this giant picture of my dad. So I said to the guy, I said, that's my dad. He went, no, it's a local character, Ron. He said, no, it's my dad. And he didn't believe me. And I had to get on my phone and say, that's my dad. Why is he here? Now, on a final tribute to my dad, Ruggie said that he doesn't like any waste. I can tell you, being a Puddick, he doesn't like any waste. He would go through the skips at the back in this mews looking for things that might have some value. Didn't need them, I can assure you, didn't need them. But that insecurity, I guess, of just being maybe able to get something that might have some value. And this guy, I used to talk to him and have a cup of tea with him, the photographer. And I asked him to sell me the picture. He wouldn't. And I've just recently messaged him because of all of this, and he's obviously sent his condolences to the family. And I've said to him, now can I buy that picture, please? So he's going to come back to me. So our final song, it's on Overrun for other people, is Nat King Cole's Unforgettable. sandwiches and things, you'd be very, very welcome.
That's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far, like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way, and forevermore. That's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable in every way, and forevermore. That's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too.